Welcome to the HMO Property Podcast, where we connect, educate, and inspire the UK's HMO property community. So stop what you're doing, sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. What's up, HMO Nation, and welcome to another episode of the HMO Property Podcast with me, Rupert Wallace. In this episode, we're going to be interviewing successful HMO property investor, Grant Amos. Grant's going to take us on his HMO property journey, including the ups, the downs, the highs, and the lows. Now, Grant's been investing in HMOs for some 4 years now. He's completed 10 of his own projects, currently housing 52 tenants in 4 different locations. So let's jump straight in. Grant, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Rupert.
Good to see you. Before we dive into the details of your HMO journey, Grant, tell us about yourself and tell us about your background before HMOs.
Well, I'm 50 in July. And as you mentioned, I've been doing this for 4 years. But prior to that, Rupert, I had a very long career in recruitment. So I worked in the City of London, recruiting technology and peripheral technology skills to banks and insurance companies. The industry was getting younger and younger. I was getting older and older. My kids were growing up and I was hardly ever seeing them. So I came to the point where I really wanted to make a lifestyle change and find a career that I could mold around, mold around my life rather than molding my life around my career. So that's how it came about. But there was a step between me ending my career and getting into HMOs, and that was I bought a franchise, which I still operate actually, but it's a service to landlords who have properties that suffer from mold and condensation, that kind of thing. So when I was networking at property events for that franchise, that's when I stumbled across HMOs. And I was just completely blown away by what was achievable and very excited about getting involved. I was very fortunate because when I was in my mid-20s, I bought a couple of places in central London, which I'd always kept. And they just slowly crept up in value. So, I had those behind me. That was my first sniff of HMOs, and then it all went on forward from there. But yeah, background very much city-based, 8 in the morning till 8 at night, often working weekends too.
So that was 20 years of recruitment, absolutely to the grindstone, working hard, work-life balance, not quite what it should have been.
To say the least.
So you did approximately 20 plus years in the city, would you say?
Yeah, that's right. So I've been doing HMOs for 4 years. So I started when I was 45, 46, and I left the city when I was 40 and started in my early 20s. So yes, and there was that 4 or 5 year gap when I was working on my franchise before I got into HMOs.
Got it. And 20 years in the city, and you bought a couple of places, they must have done you pretty good, I would imagine.
Yeah, they did. They did, and I don't have them anymore, which is sad in a way, but it's allowed me to use that capital and leverage it far greater than I ever would have done had they just been sitting in the capital. Going up in value is one thing, but if you can't tap into the income as a result of that value, then I saw it as being pretty pointless.
Okay.
I was very fortunate. Right place, right time.
Hey, right place, right time is one thing, but taking action is another. So I commend you for that.
Very true.
Grant, tell us a bit more, and you've touched on the franchise already, how you actually made that step from normal property investing to getting into the world of HMOs?
Well, I did a few webinars. I subscribed to YPN, and when I was going to these property events, instead of talking about Envirovent, which is the other franchise, I was more then interested in networking, talking to people who had set HMOs up. So very quickly, I got to the point where I really wanted to give it a go. It just, I guess, recruitment never came naturally to me. It was always a career that I did, and I enjoyed the income, but I never, I know it sounds like a cliche, but I never really had a passion for it. Whereas property, particularly HMOs, the minute I found out about it, I just wanted to, dive in and get involved. So I didn't find starting particularly difficult. In fact, I was almost having to hold myself back and just cross-check everything. So I set up a lot of viewings, looked around a lot of properties, and just when I found the first project, which is a property in Guildford, very exciting. But then you start getting self-doubt. Is it right? Is it too? Am I paying too much for it? Is the location right? Does this really work? Should I just run another test advert? Those sort of things. But yeah, the timeline into learning what an HMO was and to getting involved was probably, I would say, around 12 months.
Good. And was there anything holding you back getting into HMO property?
A lot of things hold me back in my life, as I think they do.
You're not alone?
Namely around fear and, maybe self-doubt and those sort of things. I have to say, no, I was just very excited to get involved. I was more concerned about making mistakes. And as I say, my concern was more holding me back. But maybe a sense of, is this too good to be true? Are these kind of rental returns really possible? Can I really buy a property and, maybe make £25,000 a year from one property? So it was more kind of all of it, being real rather than just something that you maybe read about in a magazine or somebody told you about on a course.
Great. Grant, looking forward to the rest of this interview already. But first, tell us about your very first HMO property deal. Rewind 4 years, give us some metrics, give us how it felt.
So we are back in, where are we? So there was still a property slump where, I think it was 4.5 years ago when I found the property. So it was a 3-bedroom house, 2 miles out of Guildford. It was about the 6th or 7th property that I'd actually viewed, and I wasn't particularly interested at that stage in doing any significant building work, which has since changed. But back then, I was looking for properties where the space was already there. So big garage on the side where you could either get 2 bedrooms or a garage on the side or a side extension with a garage at the bottom and a bedroom above, which is actually what this property was. So rather sadly, the couple who had owned it, I think they were having some kind of relationship problems, and they undertook the project to extend the house. I found out afterwards, to try and kind of salvage our marriage and just have a point of interest in terms of doing the extension. And I don't think it went very well. So when I looked at the house, it was kind of mainly done, but not fully completed. A lot of the rooms still needed painting. The bathrooms were half done and those sort of things. And they were parting ways. The property came on the market, and again, it was because the property market wasn't great then, slight fear factor. Should I wait? Should I dive in? I'll just dive in. So I came to the conclusion, went backwards and forwards on price, settled on a price, and lo and behold, it was mine. And suddenly you're there. I've got this property. I've got to start. What do I do? So that was the first one. And it was a simple question of converting the garage, converting the utility room behind the garage to create a bedroom ensuite, then converting the dining room off the kitchen into a bedroom. And then actually I got it wrong. It wasn't 3 bedrooms, it was 4 bedrooms, because I had a bedroom above the garage. So the 4 bedrooms upstairs were already in situ. So one of them had an ensuite. So we just tarted it all up, finished everything, new carpets, new floors, new walls, new tiles, good to go. I think The property cost me, was 295,000, and we had a refurb budget of 35,000, and we came in, I think, 2,000 above.
Great. And dare I ask, what did it cash flow and what's it worth?
So the cash flow was it's around 600 per room that we were achieving, and to be honest, it's come up a little bit over the years, but it's pretty much stayed at that level. And we're always we try not to be greedy, because we just don't want voids, and I think we've had a void in that house over the last 4 years of maybe 1 month in total.
Okay. Wow.
So we probably could eke a little bit more, but we're now still at 625, which equates to £42,000 worth of rent. It clears me after the mortgage, which is 75% mortgage, 25% deposit. It's clearing around £25,000 per annum.
Fantastic. Absolutely love that. And with the refurb, did you add some value onto it as well, in excess of the refurb cost?
Yeah, difficult to say. We when we look at properties, we always try and do that, but the reality, it can be very difficult. So I wouldn't say anything major. No, it was very much purchased as a property which is going to produce an ongoing long-term income, and providing the property wasn't going to be worth, what we were looking for is just to at least get back the refurb costs. Yeah. We may have made a bit more on it, but because I didn't remortgage straight afterwards, it's difficult to be specific. So I would say we probably did add value, but it's not part of the model, and it wasn't something we were necessarily looking to do.
It wasn't part of the model then, but maybe it is now.
We'll come to that.
We will. Good. Okay, Grant, next up, tell me, how has investing in HMOs changed your life?
I still have to, Rupert, pinch myself sometimes and say to myself, is this true? Firstly, I've always been fairly ambitious, but I never knew there was an entrepreneur in myself, and that's kind of been brought out by this opportunity. It's changed. I work long hours, but I can mold my hours around my life. I'm earning a good income, enough to do the things that we need to do, live in a nice house, enjoy nice meals out and go on holidays and those sort of things. So it's really the lifestyle change. And I also, the biggest thing of all is I enjoy my life, because my life now isn't, my life starts at 8 o'clock in the evening when work finishes. My life starts when I'm getting out of bed and starting my day, because I enjoy it so much. And it's the diversity of being an HMO landlord. As I was having a conversation with someone the other day, there's so many different things involved. You have to be a property sourcer, you have to be a project manager, you have to be a property manager, you have to be an architect, you have to have decent design skills, and you also need to juggle, because invariably there's 10 or 15 things all going on simultaneously that you're having to act upon. So never a quiet moment, and I really relish and enjoy that side of it as well.
What a marked difference I would imagine that feels compared to 20 years in the city.
Completely. Yeah.
Good. Glad to hear it. Next up, Grant, tell us your favourite part of HMO property investing.
The favourite part of HMO investing, it's almost what I've just touched on, and that is the variety of things. But I guess my favourite, and I just enjoy the challenge of just multitasking and having to learn all those disciplines. But my favourite thing now, and it didn't used to be, it used to be the numbers, but now my favourite thing is more looking at the property and really looking at how we can make the property exceptional, so it can stand out, be much, stand out more than the others. We're looking for our properties now. When a tenant walks in, you've got to assume that they're looking, 3, 4, 5 other places on the same evening, and we want ours to have that wow factor that brings them to us. So, I've never really enjoyed interior design, wallpaper, tiles, flooring, colours of walls, those sort of things, but I've grown to enjoy it literally over the last 18 months or 2 years since we've started thinking about the design element of the properties that we're producing.
Good. So variety, you would say, would be number one.
Yeah, variety. Great. Number one, followed by the just getting involved in designing them from an interior point of view.
Love it. Grant, we've talked about your past. Now, before we move on to the present and your future plans in HMO property, let's take a minute to thank our sponsor.
Are you looking for an effortless HMO mortgage experience? If that's a yes, there's only one place to go: www.thehmomortgagebroker.co.uk, the UK's #1 specialist HMO mortgage broker. They're so specialised that they don't do anything else. HMO mortgages, HMO remortgages, and HMO bridging. That's it. They have access to every HMO lender out there, and even some exclusive products not available to other brokers. With lightning fast service and A1 communication, they're easily the best HMO broker in town. So to experience HMO lending made easy, go to www.thehmomortgagebroker.co.uk today.
Grant, fast forwarding to the present day, go into a bit more detail for us about your current portfolio. We've got the locations. What kind of tenants do you have?
So we are focused, we're very much a lifestyle business. So we typically want mid-20s, postgraduate. So a lot of our tenants have either just graduated, excuse me, or they're 1-2 jobs away from graduation. We live in a very mobile world now, and a lot of the tenants we're bringing on, they've graduated from, somewhere 100, 200, 300 miles away. So they're coming to maybe Bristol or Guildford. They don't know anybody and they have nowhere to live. So we're wanting to provide them not just a room and a house where they just lock the door when they get back from work and watch telly in their room. We really want a community. So communal spaces is our big thing, both separate lounge and dining area. And we're wanting our houses to be social hubs where people meet other people, as well as just, having it as a place to stay. And because of that, we enjoy great tenant location. Take two. We enjoy great tenant retention because they stay in the properties for longer, because they enjoy being in the houses and meeting people that come in and come out and those sort of things. We've had situations where they've gone to centre parks together, they've booked holidays to Spain together, eating out and going to the pub collectively happens on a regular basis, and those sort of things. So that's very much our tenant profile. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Really sounds like you're fostering a community rather than just being a landlord.
Yes, I like that phraseology, Rupert. That's good.
Okay, next up, out of the 10 projects that you've done, Grant, give us your #1 best HMO investment to date and why.
Well, do you know, I'm going to cite the first one, because we, in terms of a model of people in their early to mid-20s enjoying a household, we really did achieve that from the off. And whilst the properties now, the design is, at a higher level, we've got en suites in all the rooms, and we've done away with magnolia walls and laminate flooring. That still is there's a couple that are financially slightly more successful, but that still is really the anchor of what we've done. And everything we've done has springboarded from that one house where we wanted to create this kind of community for people to live in. So I would have to go back to the very first house we did, and we still look at it and enjoy it. And it's a very different house now because you've gone and painted the magnolia walls. We've replaced the carpet, replaced the flooring. We haven't put any more en suites, which is the one thing we regret not doing in the beginning. But yeah, I would say to date, nothing has really exceeded that very first property in terms of becoming something that we favour more, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. A lot of people on this podcast say the same thing.
Really?
And I guess it's half because when you're venturing into the unknown, the feeling of doing that and then getting it right, even though it might not be perfect, that's a great feeling.
Yeah, completely. And, I could have said the most recent one we did was the most successful, and in a way financially it is. But just when you asked me that, what came from my heart was the first one, definitely, for the reasons. And it doesn't surprise me necessarily that other people say that. And you could almost say that even if it all went horribly wrong, it would be the biggest learning curve of them all, wouldn't it?
And the thing is, it's not all about the money. I mean, we all invest in HMOs for the cash flow, but there are secondary benefits, both to you and the tenants, for doing property development, for creating HMOs. Absolutely. Grant, tell us about one significant mistake you've made in your HMO business that by sharing, you might help others avoid.
It's difficult, Rupert. I've been asked this question before, and whilst I can think of lots of little mistakes, I can't think of anything which would be, never do that again. I guess the closest to it is probably the second project we did. The second project we did was in Farnborough, so about 10 miles away from Guildford in the southeast, and we went for a property that was it was an ex-council property, so it was ugly as sin from the outside, but inside a great property, very well built, and it's a great space internally, and we filled the rooms very easily, and for the first few years it was great, cash flowing well. We didn't pay a fortune for it because it looked so ugly from the outside, but we're finding now, because people's standards are so much higher, whereas before, one viewing, room gone, we're finding with that property we're having to do more viewings. It's harder work. It's probably the hardest one in our portfolio in terms of having the number of viewings we have to do to secure the rooms. We still get very few voids. I wouldn't sell it. But yeah, that's probably the greatest mistake. And I think the greatest mistake was being kind of complacent, thinking, there's so much demand for this product, we can buy anything and we'll find tenants, no problem. One really needs to think about what one is doing. One needs to think about the house, how it looks like inside, from the outside, and the location. And unless you're 100% about any particular property, you've got to stay away from it. Just even if it might work now, it might not work in a year or two. So you've got to really future-proof. So I'm I think, getting to the answer in time. I think we didn't future-proof with that property. We thought here and now, this will work out well. Let's buy it and let's do it. That's the biggest thing I've learned, is just to, don't cut any corners. If the property's not right, don't buy it, wait.
A great learning, that, because many of us, we want to get going, we want to pull the trigger, we want to get that cash flowing, but actually there are plenty of mistakes, and complacency, I think, is a great one that you've highlighted. Grant, tell us about your HMO portfolio plans for the next 12 months.
So we're very cautious. We try and do 1 or 2 properties a year. We're aiming for 2 this year. We've got one in development now in Bristol, which will be finished in a couple of months. I've got an offer out on another one in Guildford, which if we get that, then hopefully that'll be ready this year. If not, then we will find another one to be ready by the end of 2019. So 12 months from now, finish the one in Bristol, buy the one in Guildford, and maybe start on another one early in 2020. But yeah, our main challenge is finding the right properties. And that, a lot of people say to me, Grant, your product is really spread out. And there is a good reason for that. We like to spread our risk, but also the real reason is we find it hard to find the properties in a given location, the ones that work for us. So we've had to find other areas to hunt for properties that we know work. And that's how we become geographically quite spread. But yeah, so 2 or 3 in the next 12 months, and maybe find 1 or 2 other investors to work with. So I'm afraid it's slowly and surely for us at the moment, but I think that has to be the way with all the headwinds and an uncertainty going on at the moment.
Slow and steady wins the race, as they say. Now, Grant, apart from building the portfolio, is there anything you're up to in property that you'd like to share with HMO Nation?
Other than I really enjoy what I do. I love sharing knowledge with other people that are trying to get into it. I've got no ambition to get into training or mentoring or anything like that. But I'm very open to sharing, and I'm kind of, it's very early days, but I'm looking at ways of putting together forums, groups where information can be shared between people who are experienced and have been around the block a few times to those that are maybe less experienced. So through pure enjoyment more than anything else, I've recently set up the HMO project group on Facebook, and it's just simply the project we're doing in Bristol from beginning to end, warts and all. We post pictures of the development, how it's going, and people ask us questions, about builders, how we find them, what to look for, what pitfalls to avoid. The questions are numerous and in a way never ending, but I really enjoy that side of it and getting on top of it. So I'm trying to interact more with the HMO community in terms of people that are looking to get into it, and hoping there are ways that they can harness off my experience and lessons that I've learnt to date. But as I say, it's more for enjoyment than for any hidden agenda in terms of getting into training or running training courses or anything like that.
Great. It's a good thing to give back. It's a really good thing to give back. And I'll make sure that we link up in the show notes page to this podcast, a link to your Facebook group so people can learn from and share. Grant, what advice would you give to HMO investors who are already in the market?
Be slow, not slow, but be cautious. Everybody wants to expand, but I think we are in difficult times at the moment with the obvious thing in terms of Brexit and what's happening with the economy. So people who are involved in it at the moment, of course you want to carry on running your business, and to a certain extent, one has to carry on. But be selective, do your research, and only take on the best possible properties that are in the right locations where there's proven tenant demand, and always look ahead. One always has to ask the question, will this property work in 5, 10, 15, 20 years time? So research, location is the one for me. And I would, that's the advice I'd give to anyone who's, in this market at the moment.
And what about any advice you'd give to people who are considering getting into HMO property investment for the very first time?
Yeah, I understand the diversity of it. A lot of people, think it's an easy thing to get into and there are quick wins there and everything else. It's not rocket science, but there is a lot more to it than meets the eye. And, one needs to be able to bring numerous different skills to the table in order for a project to be successful. And if we don't have these skills, we've got to, one mouth, two ears, where we, can listen, leverage off other people's experience and those sort of things in terms of making it work. And I think at the beginning of my journey, I just through lack of self-confidence more than anything else, I was always asking a lot of questions of people and just, taking advice before moving forward.
Grant, before we sign off, we'd like you to recommend one great HMO resource or business book that you'd like to share. Then we'll let HMO Nation know how they can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye.
Now, the best book for me, and I can't remember the author, but I read it a couple of times, is The Slight Edge.
Got it. Perfect.
Slight Edge is
The Slight Edge. We'll pick up the author for you. And how about if HMO Nation want to connect with you? How can they do that? Well,
very welcome on my email address, which is grant@billsallincluded.com. I also have a website, which is www.billsallincluded.com. My name's not that common, so I'm fairly easy to find on Facebook. And then I have a Facebook group, which is in its infancy at the moment. We only have, I think, 100 odd members, but that's the HMO project group, where there's a live HMO project. So anyone's welcome to join and ask as many questions as you like. Fill your boots. And it's fairly interactive. There's other members there that share information as well.
Fantastic. Grant, Thanks for sharing your journey. We salute you. Let's get an HMO high five. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks, Grant.
Thank you very much, Rupert. Take care.
Thanks. Thanks for joining us. If you've enjoyed this and want more informational, educational and inspirational HMO property content, then please hit the subscribe button and give us a like. See you next time.